good evening, namaste, and welcome to the Festival of Bharat. My name is Citti, and I'll be your host for this program. Joining us today is the amazing Neena Rai, who's come out with a book called Amazing Ayodhya, the splendid ancient city of Lord Rama, and it's a very promising read. Before we delve further into discussing the details of the book, I thought we might as well discuss about Diwali, which got recently concluded. First of all, Neena ji, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you here on the Festival of Bharat. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I watched some of your episodes. I really like them. So thank you so much.
That's a great compliment to hear from you. Thank you so much. And in fact, thank you for sending me a copy of the book. And I've been reading it for a while now, and it looks very interesting. And through this platform and through this interview, I hope a lot of our viewers will be able to grasp some of the knowledge that you're trying to purvey through this book.
Yeah, in fact, why only some of the people? I think that all the people who watch this should grasp something about Ayodhya and understand why Hindus fought so much for such a sacred land. And I think every Hindu should know about Ayodhya, what Ayodhya used to be, so that they can redevelop the pride that has been robbed by a series of, bad history teachings, thanks to the, our education ministers and the communists who have written history for us.
Right. But, since we were also discussing about Diwali,
yes.
Why should we actually celebrate Diwali, especially that too with firecrackers? Was the conversational topic a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Because if you want to celebrate Diwali, why not just light diyas? What is the need for bursting firecrackers is what a lot of activists online were saying.
Invokes.
Right.
These days, okay, so sorry to say this, but every dumb idiot becomes an activist these days, and every woke thinks that they're an activist. And sometimes people don't have titles, so they call themselves activists. So this is number one I want to tell you. Okay, and the question you need to ask is, why not? How is it justified that for Thanksgiving you have to kill turkeys? So do these people raise slogans against that? How is it justified that during Bakri Eid cows and goats should be slaughtered? And what they do is they get them in the building itself, and then they do the procedure, the halal, in front of children. So these people never think of, like, should we do this? And how is it that these people never talk of how many Christmas trees are felled for Christmas? So how is it that only during Hindu festivals, mind you, only during Hindu festivals, these people remember that, oh, this is causing pollution? Well, 5 times in a day, azan is causing noise pollution. What have you done about it? And what about all the honking that you do in the car when you're in the car? And what about driving a car? I mean, how many people drive diesel cars? Do you know how much pollution diesel cars cause? So how is it that the same people don't ask these questions? And, there are people who are like, oh my God, my dog gets so scared. And, I'm like, yeah, but you eat chicken and you eat lamb and you eat other animals. So how is it that, there is this dichotomy in society wherein just because it's a dog or a cat, it's more valuable than who? The other animals. So it's basically saying, I'm better than you, and whatever I say is better than you. But if you're a Hindu and you like cows and you think cows are sacred, you must be, old-fashioned or stupid or something. So the question is not about Diwali. And the question is, how come they don't ask these questions? How is it only selective during Diwali? And about diyas?
I think the simple answer is most of these books have an IQ, a very high IQ. And the IQ here stands for Instagram quotient. So, dogs and cats are very popular on Instagram. But
yes. So cat videos are the most watched videos on social media, on YouTube. You just take one of these cat videos, huh? And by the way, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on them. I myself have had cats and dogs as pets. In my family's had cows, cats, dogs, ducks, or you name it. We've had them as pets. I've had birds as pets. I love all animals. I'm not judging anything. But you're right. This is like millions of people just watch cats. This is the IQ level of the masses. This is what they watch. And then we're supposed to hear from the masses what we should be doing. So, if the IQ level of the masses is so low, what kind of decisions are they going to make? And the kind of questions they're going to raise is anyways going to be really sad. So
Since we are talking about woke culture and even cancel culture for that matter, I think there's a long list of things that have been cancelled or have been called out by the wokesters these days. So let's take a couple of them at least. For instance,
yeah.
one of the controversial moves that Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath did as soon as he took power in 2017 was that he renamed many of Uttar Pradesh's cities, and many of these are major cities. And Faizabad is now called as Ayodhya. But according to the logic of some of these people, now you've written a book called Amazing Ayodhya. It should be fantastic Faizabad or something like that.
Over my dead body, it'll be fantastic Faizabad. They can go take a walk in the park.
Right, but according to you, why is this right in order to rename cities?
Okay. So first of all, who are these cities named on? Some low-class looters and marauders who came and looted India through sheer brute force. And what did they give to India? Really? Harems, death, destruction. Tell me some amazing things that these people made. Did they educate India? Did India reach some new heights? Or since the time they came, India went down, 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 down to such an extent that the British were able to come and control. And when the British came, some of the Hindus were like, thank God somebody saved us from these people. Okay, so these are losers. And wherever they came from, by the way. So I lived, for a very long time abroad, and I lived in Muslim countries. I lived in the Middle East, right? And I interacted with a lot of Middle Eastern people, Afghani, Turkish, and all these people. And I would ask them, do you know these people? Like I would name them and I said, do you know they came to India? And they're like, who? What? We don't know. Who are these people?
Right.
They have no idea. So their own countries have no idea of these third-rate looters. Okay, these third-rate looters who have destroyed our cities, who've destroyed our people, destroyed our civilization. We've named cities after them because they wanted it. So see, naming a city after yourself is a very narcissistic or a psychopathic trait. It's a very narcissistic trait, to be very honest.
Right.
Okay, and especially when you're not creating a city from scratch. So if you create a city from scratch and you name it after yourself, fair enough, that should be given to you, right? But to destroy a city and then put your stamp on it is psychopathic and narcissist. Okay, these are very destructive personality traits. And if you ask me, I find that India had a flourishing culture, beautiful cities before. And if you will read my book, Amazing Ayodhya, this is something that you will see how organized the cities were, how organized everything was in the thing. So it's like a beautiful artwork. I see this as a beautiful artwork. I mean, look at our temples; they're glorious. Look at the gardens. Look at the artwork that we create. Look at our paintings. Look at our jewelry. Look at our saris. I mean, there's so much beauty in India. And this is the gift of Hinduism to the world: fabric, right? Diamonds, pearls. There's so much gift that we've given to the world: science, technology, right? Ancient Hindus. And these marauders, they're basically like cheap graffiti artists on like beautiful paintings. Okay, so they've come and destroyed that beautiful painting. And if somebody wants to recreate that painting back and bring back the glory, what's wrong?
But it hurts the sentiment of a few minority population.
Well, the minority population, why are they so bothered? Aren't they? So why are they so bothered about, why do they associate with these marauders? The population in our country is Hindu, and they got converted. They didn't come from Afghanistan. I mean, if they did, then then it's another story. Most of them who did have the ticket to go back today, would they go back? Like, what are they taking pride in? Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkmenistan? Like, please. So, I mean, so what I'm saying is these are mostly converted Hindus, and, they should also have the realization and know in which generation they converted, and that the glory of India is not in the Mughal era. The glory of India is in the pre-Mughal era. The glory of India is our temples are pre-Mughal era. So this is what I think. And if they have so much of, I mean, why would anybody want to associate with third-rate looters? I'm sorry to say this. They're not the pride of our culture. I mean, and that holds true for, just because they're Muslim, that should never be the identity of an Indian Muslim.
Right. Perfectly said. There's another talking point which is which has been going on, especially ever since the Supreme Court's verdict on the Ram Mandir, Ram Janambhoomi dispute came out.
Yeah.
Why couldn't a hospital or a school be built in that place? At the end of the day, nobody dislikes hospitals or schools. They're very charitable.
Yeah, sure. And this is the reason one of the reasons that triggered me to write this book, because every time I would hear this, mujhe lagta tha mere kanon se na khoon nikal raha hai, like I'm bleeding through my ears. I used to be fuming. Okay, so here is the question. Why don't we convert the whole Vatican into a lovely school? Why don't we convert the Mecca Medina into a lovely hospital? And why don't we do this to Bethlehem? And why don't we do this to every religious place on earth? And if you do not have the balls to do this or to even ask this question, then you should leave the Vaishnavas alone. See, for Vaishnavas, all the avatars of Vishnu are very important. And amongst them, Krishna and Ram are the two most important avatars. Okay, so leave the Vaishnavas alone, go find another place. And when it comes to opening a school and, hospital or anything, I mean, look at the lovely work ISKCON does. I mean, this is such a woke question. Okay, this is such a woke response to everything. I mean, look at the number of people ISKCON feeds on a daily basis. I mean, and here is something that I want to tell these wokes, and the ISKCON feeds them on, in schools and everything. So one of the reasons children are able to go to school is because they're going to get fed there, right? Because some parents cannot feed.
By the way, they did have a problem with Sattvic food as well, because there is no inclusion of onion and garlic and whatnot. So it just never ends.
This, and I'll tell you something. You tell the same wokes that why don't you stop drinking champagne and stop going out to clubbing and stop wasting money on Costa coffee and barista? Why don't you go feed the poor? You will notice that none of these wokes will do that. You tell them go live poor and convert your house into a hospital. They never do that. Go tell them to sell the property and make a hospital. Tell them to serve a patient. They'll never do that. This is just hypocritical talk. This is actually lip service. So they sound nice. In reality, anybody who does groundwork will never say these questions. So this is just like you said, this is for like Instagram followers, not reality.
Right. You're very right. I mean, if I could give one example, in the case of Lakshadweep, Praful Patel got into a huge controversy because he was planning to lift the ban on alcohol because they wanted a much more bigger commercial plan for Lakshadweep. And when it come to Meerut, or I think it was Meerut, if I'm not mistaken, or someplace in Uttar Pradesh, it became a huge controversy because they wanted to appoint or impose a ban on alcohol. So the double standards are very clearly visible in this manner. But all of this aside, let's come to the serious part of the interview and talk about your book. What made you write this book?
So one of my chapters in the book, in fact, in the beginning of the book, after the preface and the transliteration guide, I've written, why did I write this book? So I wrote this book because I am, I grew up as a Hindu, and I'm one of those people who grew up as a proud Hindu. I had, and as a young person, I was aware of a lot of things, and thanks to the influence of my family growing up, I was exposed to the life of Bhagwan Ram. So I'm a devotee. So the first thing that makes you explore something, is that because you want to explore that, right? So if I explored the Valmiki Ramayana, is because it was my desire to explore and read what happened in Bhagwan Ram's life. Because everything that I would hear about, him was in terms of gossip. Ye aisa hua, wo waisa hua. And why do I call it gossip? I call it gossip because nobody's really read the Ramayana, but everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to discuss it. Even for that matter, what is shown on television is not true. It's a very messed up version that we see on television, and it doesn't hold any place in reality or what is written in Valmiki Ramayana. And why I'm emphasizing Valmiki Ramayana so much is because Valmiki ji was a contemporary of Bhagwan Ram. And, so a contemporary would know better. Just as how Ved Vyas was a contemporary of the, he was technically the grandfather of the Kauravas and, all of them. So Kauravas and the Pandavas. So he was contemporary. He lived through that era. So I wrote the book because I wanted to write it. I had the information that I wanted to share. And I was very tired of this bullshit that was going on, which is like, why shouldn't we have a hospital? Why shouldn't we have this? And one of the reasons is, I felt that if I had the knowledge, that it was my duty to share that knowledge with the world so that the current generation understands. You see, because even our parents don't know the answers, because even our grandparents don't know the glory of Ayodhya, and neither do our Kathavachaks talk about it. So how do we expect this generation to know something about, our own ancient glory? We didn't know. Nobody told us. Now they will not have an excuse. After my book, nobody can come and say, well, what's so special about Ayodhya? Well, take a look at it and read it and you'll know.
It's a wonderful thing that you've done, because most of us who've been taught about Ayodhya have been taught through either a constitutional or legal prism as to what the entire dispute was. Beyond that, we were never really taught about its history, its architecture, about its glory.
So because our starting point is the conflict.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the reason why we don't understand why. Because a conflict doesn't make sense. When there is a conflict, you want to de-escalate it. Okay. So the attempt was to de-escalate the conflict. That's a bad way to start. The right way to start is, why did they want to destroy it in the first place? Right. So why did they want to destroy it? They wanted to destroy it because they thought conversions in India from Hinduism to Islam will become faster as we lose respect for Bhagwan Ram. As the idol of Bhagwan Ram goes down, as the memory of Bhagwan Ram goes down. Okay, so that this is one of the reasons why they went and they burnt all temples, they destroyed the temples, they looted the temples. They also wanted to, they also destroyed all the libraries and books, because if there was a book, there should only be one book and there should be no education and no book. We don't need any book. So this was the mentality. So if you see, this was the root cause. The root cause is, this is why I said ignorance, low-grade looters and marauders. And so if you don't expose this, you will always be in wonder. And this is why you will always keep talking about the conflict. Now, after I've written the book, you will know why Ayodhya was important. And this is why we kept fighting, because, and another thing is that people assume that there is, memory will go away. And this is something that doesn't go away. Memory and trauma doesn't go away. It gets transferred from generation to generation. The memory of Bhagwan Ram has not gone away, and it has resurfaced, and it will resurface in a very big way in times to come. And this is something that I may be saying it, you may be hearing it from my mouth, but I'd seen it coming a very, very long time ago. My book is a result of 5 years of work, so I'd already seen it coming.
So in fact, what we do is we'll put an Amazon link to your book in the description so that a lot of our viewers are able to order it.
Sure.
And which is why I thought, this will be also very educational and informative for our viewers. So let's start with the basics, right? So I put down a few FAQs that, the general public, people who are extremely ill-informed or not at all informed about the history and the glory of Ayodhya could actually know about it. So for beginners, let's start with when and who established Ayodhya.
Okay, so this is the most important part. So, this is something I unearthed from my research, and people find it very surprising. And the first part of my book, starts with the answer to this question, and I'll repeat it again for everybody. So, how do you address human beings? What do you call them?
Depends on the language.
Yeah. In English, what would you call them? Or even in
Mrs. Miss.
you'd call like a man is like, a man and a woman, and a manav jati as a, right? Like a homo sapien, a male homo sapien is called a man, and generally it's called mankind. And in Hindi we call manav, right? Humans are called manav, right?
Yeah.
So the word man and manav have their root in the word manu. And Manu is a title. It's like a title given to the president. So let's say the president is the title. Okay, so for a prime minister is a title. So for example, Narendra Modi is the prime minister. That's the title, right? So that's the title. It's a titular name. Okay. Yeah. Now this is given to the progenitor of the human species. And what do we mean by the progenitor of the human species? After every pralay or deluge, when all species are wiped out, especially human species are wiped out, because in deluge, everybody dies. People don't really survive deluges. So when this happens, then the re-establishment of humankind or manav, or, as a species and other species, is carried out by a man or a family, or, and then that family gets the title of Manu. That king, he then becomes the king. So he is then Manavendra. So what is Manavendra? Manavo me Indra. So Indra means king. So he's the king amongst men. His title is Manu. And what is surprising, and why I gave you the example of English as well as Hindi and Sanskrit, is because all Abrahamic as well as Hindu and Hindu religions, Hindu dharma and all the religions that came out of Hinduism, they trace the origin to Manu. Whether you take a look at Judaism, Christianity, whatever, they talk of they've just changed the names. They've just, and I don't, if you'd actually look back and if you actually know phonetics, they've not even changed the names. It's just that they've pronounced it in a different manner. Right. Okay. Right. So, and Hinduism is the oldest surviving religion or dharma in the world. We precede everybody else. Anybody who was there around our time no longer exists. So obviously what we have said has been copied by anybody who has come later, right? Because Judaism, Christianity, they have a starting date. Hinduism has no starting date. So we that's why we call ourselves Sanatan, from eternity to eternity, right? So Manu is the person who established Ayodhya. And after the deluge, he made this his capital. He was the first man, and it is in the vansh, or it is in the lineage of Manu that Bhagwan Ram was born. So Ayodhya has been a place of prime importance since the dawn of mankind. And by the dawn of mankind, I mean the seventh avatar, the seventh Manu, which is our Manu, the Manu of the current Manvantar. And his his Skyan as in that's why he's called the Skyan of Ikshwaku, whatever you want to call him. And so Ayodhya has always been a place of supreme importance to Hindus, and after the birth of Bhagwan Ram, it's become even more important, because you've got avatars coming from there. So his lineage, by the way, has been very important since a long time. So there's Bhagirath who got Ganga. There is Sagar who established the ocean or who expanded the ocean. So if you look at the timeline, so if you look at the lineage, is excellent. And I actually have a YouTube channel wherein I explain the kings of, I talk about the kings of Ayodhya as well. So if anybody is interested, they can go to my YouTube channel and take a look at it.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. But there are so many interesting snippets in your book that it's almost 300 pages long, so we possibly cannot discuss everything. But one thing that I found very interesting was where you described how Ayodhya was built as a city to protect from its enemies. It had a different kind of a defense. It had a different kind of a architecture and infrastructure established there. So for our viewers, could you elaborate a little more on that?
So I come from, so I'll give you a background. I come from a defense family, and I'm very interested in art and architecture. So I would speak to my father about it, and we spoke a little bit, and of course other army officers. The whole of Ayodhya. So the word Ayodhya means, it is a Sanskrit word that is a sandhi. It is a sandhi between na yudhya. So whenever you have na and yudhya, it becomes ayudhya. So ayudhya. So for example, na mit means becomes amit. Okay. Na jar means becomes ajar. So ajar means that doesn't grow old. Amit means that you cannot destroy, jo mitta nahi hai, or or that somebody who doesn't die is amit. And so Ayodhya then is that which you cannot fight. Right? Now, why is a city built that you cannot fight this city? So think about it. What would be the strategy? And please understand that we don't live in a woke la la land. Okay, so we live in we live, and in the ancient past, there were all types of threats and dangers that were there. So we hear of battles between the Rakshas and the Devs, and we hear of so many battles. And this is a city established by Kshatriyas. Okay, and so the Kshatriyas are they're responsible. So every varn, and I don't mean jati. So please understand the difference between varn and jati. So every varn has a role to play. The Brahmins, they give you the brains. The Kshatriyas, they are the protectors. The Vaishya, they are the traders, and the Shudra, they are the service class people, right? So this is built by Kshatriyas. So Kshatriyas, if they have to do their duty well, they will make a city that will protect from external problems. Right. And then it was designed, it was designed in such a manner that it gave them water. It also, kept enemies away. So in the design, what they did was they built, and by the way, it's made on the basis of Vastu Shastra. So it follows the tenets of Vastu Shastra to the T. And the idea behind developing Ayodhya, exactly as its name, is also written in my book. Okay, so and Valmiki says why it is Ayodhya, and it says true to its name, it is Ayodhya, and Dashrath ruled from there. So what is true to its name? It's true to its name means that wo us function ko karta tha. So example, I'll give you an example. So the Ayodhya as a city, in earlier times, everybody used to live in a durg. So it was like a durg. It was protected, right? It was a fortified city. Yeah. In the fortified city, people live. Now, how do you save a fort from attacks? So what you do is you build a parikha. In Sanskrit, we call it a parikha. Parikha is like a moat, okay? And you may fill it with water, you may not fill it with water, depending on what is it that you prefer, because these options are given to people. And in the moat, if you read Arthashastra further, in the moat, he subscribes that you should keep alligators. But in earlier times, in the Ramayana, it says that they imported hippopotamuses in Ayodhya. And I found that very amusing. Why would they import hippopotamuses? So hippopotamus is a very territorial animal, by the way.
Right.
And in ancient times, hippopotamuses were very valued. So if you take a look at the Egyptian civilization, and these are things that are not everything can go in the book because it is about Ayodhya. So, I don't want to write about Egyptian civilization. I just want to write about Ayodhya. But I have lived in Egypt. I've traveled across the world. I've traveled and I've gone and made it a point to see specific ancient cultures and ancient ruins. So that I used to be very fascinated by all of that. So what they did was a hippopotamus is a very, very unique being. One, it's very territorial. Second, a hippopotamus is called Daryai Ghoda because it spends its lifetime in the water. And in the water, on ground, it's a very slow animal, but in water, it's very speedy, it's very fast. Okay, I thought, did they have it as pets? Did they not have it as pets? So it didn't make sense to have it in the city because then they'll be killing everything, right? So it was obvious that they were in the they were outskirts in the river. Okay, and around every ancient city they had a moat. So where did they draw the pani from? Where did they draw the water from? So they drew it from Saryu. So though it's written in the book that all the waters came from Saryu, and in ancient times any city used to have water coming across, and the water was pulled from rivers. So the moat were filled with waters of the river. After a while, the water gets stagnant as well. It doesn't, it loses its nutritional impact.
Right.
So the so what a hippopotamus does, that it eats on the ground, then it poops in the water, and it makes the water nutrient rich. And this is the same water that then was taken into Ayodhya, and farming was done based on it. So a hippopotamus was not only useful as protection because he would kill anything that would come in the water, it was also used for environmental reasons. And then I have given the excavation of a hippopotamus around 15,000 years ago from the Narmada River Basin. And you have to understand Narmada River Basin, where they found him, where they found that the excavation was Mahakosal. So Mahakosal, so there is Kosal, which is the kingdom, and beneath it is Mahakosal. And from Mahakosal is where Kaushalya ji is from. So the word Kaushalya means to whom Kosal belongs. So that's what the word Kaushalya means. So she's the first wife of, Dashrath ji, and she's the queen there. So if hippopotamuses are found in the Narmada River Basin, that means they could have easily been in the Saryu River Basin. And it's because, if you see the rivers, so Saryu is here, and then just a little bit below is Narmada. I mean, if you read, if you look at the geographical maps, and ancient excavations have actually come out near Ghaggar River.
Yeah.
So a lot of ancient excavations have shown that the whole belt was absolutely, they had lots of flourishing cities out there, excavation sites. And Ghaggar, so there's river Ghaggar, by the way, but Ghaggar, Ghaggar or Ghaggar, whatever you want to call it, where I come from, they still call it Saryu. So that whole river Ghaggar is also called Saryu. So I come from, my paternal, village is near, so we call it Saryu. We don't, Ghaggar was a name that was given later. So for us, it's still Saryu. So, if you take a look at the length of the Ghaggar River, it's a massive river.
Right.
So I'm just telling you some of the reasons.
Sure.
So it was a very strategically built city or nagar or district wherein they protected the waters, and it has a reason why they did that. So any invading army, and in the invading armies there are types of there are four parts of an army, so four angs. So there is the foot soldiers, which is the infantry, then there is the ghursavar, which is the cavalry, then there is the elephants, and then there is the rath, which is the chariots. So these three cannot cross the moats.
Right.
So you see, this is the reason a moat is constructed, because they can't cross it. And if anybody falls, then they die. And then there is a huge plethora of reasons. And, then there's fortification after this. there's a jungle after this. It has been fortified like that. Then there is this very wonderful weapon called Shatagni. It's been fortified, with Shatagni. So it's a killer of hundreds if it shoots. So, I mean, it's through and through a city that you cannot find because its military strategy is so good, and it's imbibed in its construction itself.
Very interesting. And what about the general infrastructure like palaces and roads and highways, etc.?
So this is also another interesting fact, and I have given the maps in my book about how the structure of the roads, etc., were done, and
Right.
it's fascinating to note that they used to be built in a grid pattern.
Right.
And a grid pattern is something that the modern world still follows. So, for example, New York is made on a grid pattern, and by a grid pattern, I mean, like if you take a maths book, there are lines vertical and then there are lines horizontal.
Yeah.
So this aided the movement of people across, and the king and his ministers and the diplomats, they stayed in the center of the city, because if there was a war, if there was something, then they could converge, all of them could converge together at a moment's notice. And you have to remember, in times of war, even in today, in times of war, the first thing that breakdowns is communication. So all communication is shut. So that's why the ministers and the king and his men would stay in the center. And then the grid pattern enables you to move right, left, up, down really fast in a city. Anyways, grid patterns have always been a success, and it's sad that a lot of Indian cities don't follow it anymore. But this is actually an ancient Hindu pattern, ancient Hindu design concept.
Right. And since it was a city that was built by Kshatriyas, right? What was the kind of weaponry that has been documented?
So there is this mention of Shatagni. So it is, and why we say that it is built by the Kshatriyas, because Manu, Satyavrat Manu, his name was Satyavrat or Shraddhadev, he was a king before. And so he was a very good king, and then he was the one who built it. And a city like this has, the construction of it may have come from the Brahmins, the ideas may have come, but the whole concept is obviously designed by a Kshatriya. Otherwise, why would you need so much protection? So this is why I say this. And sorry, what was the question you asked again?
What was the kind of weaponry that was?
Weaponry. Okay. So there is the mention of a word called this weapon called Shatagni, and it's a very fascinating weapon. And one of the things that I've done in the book, so this goes in part 5 of my book. One of the things that I've done in the book is that I have not given the answer of what a Shatagni is. I have not said this is a Shatagni. I have said, this is the proof that I have. This is what the scriptures say. This is what the commentators say. This is the proof that I get. Here is it. This is my assumption of what a Shatagni is. I've given it to them. And this is a weapon that's laid out in hundreds on the ramparts of Ayodhya. It's part 5, if you open part 5 of the book. And the word Shatagni in Sanskrit means a killer of hundreds, or 100 killer. Shat means 100 in Sanskrit. And Agni, which comes from Hant Dhatu, means to kill. The English word hunt also has its roots in the Sanskrit word Hant. Hunt means to kill. Okay, so a killer of hundreds is put on the walls, on the ramparts, and it is like a missile which shoots forward. So it goes and kills the enemies. So this is again a protective mechanism that has been employed by the Kshatriyas of Ayodhya to protect Ayodhya and its citizens. So everything is very strategically and militarily organized in Ayodhya. And this is the reason why Ayodhya is called Ayodhya. Ayodhya, you can't fight it.
And in the next subchapter, you talk about this, you use the term Atala and you elaborate on that. So what exactly is Atala?
So this, Atala didn't have enough clear meanings in some Sanskrit. It's not very easily defined. So when I started doing my research on Atala, Atalak, I came to realize that attic. So the word attic, at, means the top, and like a tower is like a tower, and alka means that goes that's like circular, alka. Okay, like this. So, and so, if you match these words and if you try and figure out, then one of the things that you noticed is that they had these watchtowers. They had these very interesting watchtowers, and these are circular watchtowers. So in English, they are, in English, you have the word bastion. Bastion.
Yeah.
Okay, so so bastions are smaller, and I've given all the images in the book as well. And so these are these towers on which people are sitting. The Shatagnis are also placed there, and and so these are these circular towers wherein people can go up. And there's a lot of people go and see these forts, and even I did not know. So I'm just sharing this information. So you'll see a lot of jutting out towers on forts. So I've given the example of Gwalior Fort. And in Gwalior Fort, you'll notice a lot of jutting out towers. These towers jut out. So for example, this is the wall of the Durg, or the palace, or whatever. And you have like an Atalak, which is like coming out like this. So you see this circular thing is coming out. And on this Atalak, if you go up, you'll find squares made on it, and then there is open area here. So they did this. So what happens is that if, let's say, so and the wall is behind, so what happens is, let's say if invading armies come, they start climbing this wall. So the soldiers here can look out and kill the people who are climbing on this wall. So this is the importance of Atalaks.
Right.
You understand the inventiveness, or whatever you want to call it, of the ancients, that any kind of attack they had already prepared for it. So the moat stopped the entry of three angs of the army, which is three parts of the army. So what is left? The soldiers are left. So what will the soldiers do? As soon as they come, they'll start climbing walls to come in the fort, right?
Yeah.
That's why you have the Atalaks, that you can come out, and shoot them from the backside, not from the top, but from the back as well, back and down. You can shoot them, because if you go fight from the front, you are going to get exposed from the top. So these are some really interesting strategies that most military people know why this is done. And so Ayodhya was made and fortified in such a manner. And that is why it is called Ayodhya.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this. So how do you actually envision Ayodhya in the future now that the dispute settled, how do we rebuild the glory that we already had? Because obviously reimagining what we had several thousands of years ago is not at all possible.
See, everything is possible.
Right.
It is only if you tell yourself that it is impossible, then it will be impossible. See, it is in the will of people. It is in the will of people, and it is in the will of our leaders. If a leader comes and says he will be able to accomplish it, wait and watch how other people will believe that he'll be able to accomplish it. Before I wrote my book, did anybody think that Ayodhya had so much glory? They didn't. In fact, people call me up, and when they speak to me, they thank me for changing the narrative from such negativity to such positive news about Ayodhya, or positive talk about Ayodhya. I had the will to do it, so I gave the information. So it just requires somebody with the will to transform a city, to transform a place, and hopefully Yogi can do it for us. Why not? I mean, take a look at how he's changing Diwali in Ayodhya, which is the center of our celebration. I mean, Ayodhya is supposed to welcome Bhagwan Ram. So I mean, during Diwali we celebrate Diwali because Ayodhya welcomed Bhagwan Ram like this, right? So everything is possible, provided we have the will to do it. And we just need one person. We don't need many people. We need one person with the vision and the will, and everybody else will follow.
Right. And also the entire civilization awaits to witness Bhavya Sri Ram Mandir back.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so we can't wait to see how that would look like. And I don't think it's too far away, probably a couple of years down the line.
I think they've given an estimate of 3 years. So hopefully
Right.
that should be done. So, we all are looking forward to it. So I hope that they can in, some way manage to recapture the glory.
Right.
So that'll be really nice. And, they can, so we can actually glimpse the glory of our own people, of our own ancient people, and the glory of our own ancient civilization.
Right.
We owe this to ourselves.
Yes.
We owe this to ourselves, and we owe this to our future generations. Our parents, our grandparents gave us a limited amount of information to work with. We've got to build on it. We can't sit and remain stagnant with it, right?
And before we conclude, do you have a message for our viewers?
Well, I just hope that our viewers take attention and pay attention to the glory of our ancients, because if the future of a civilization is to be decided, then it often rests on the glory of the ancients. It's an old psychological knowledge that
Right.
that we follow, because we always try to rise up to what we were. We always try to rise up to what we were, because then that becomes our standard. So for us to be great, so for us to be brilliant in the future, and if India tomorrow wants to be Vishwaguru again, we've got to look at how great our ancient people were. And this we can only do by reading the historical books and doing that. And then, of course, making our conduct, or making ourselves as prime examples as well, in whatever little way that we can. We must contribute to Hinduism, we must contribute to our knowledge, and we must contribute to our dharma.
Right. Thank you so much. It was a beautiful session. It was lovely talking to you. And unfortunately, we couldn't go through the entire contents of the book, but also we wouldn't want to give everything away. So most of the surprise is in the book. So viewers, please do order it. The link will be below in the description. Neena Ji, thank you so much for joining us today for a conversation. And I hope we can again meet for a conversation on a different topic, perhaps sometime in the future.
Sure, we will. Thank you so much for having me. Namaste.
Namaste.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. And to all our viewers, please do like, share, and subscribe to the Festival of Bharat and Citti Media. This is your host, Sharan Citti, signing off.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Citti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.